Shalom. Right, just wanted to do a couple of quick teachings. I did a brilliant couple of teachings called Knowing God's Plan. It was based on Ramchal's book, Da'ath Tenuvath, which is Knowing God's Plan. That's how it translates. And it was looking at the verse, who forms light and creates darkness, and who makes peace and creates evil. Did a whole teaching on that. I'm not going to go over that now, but there were some slides that I put on the second teaching I did, the one called Knowing God's Plan, Moshiach revealed, he who makes peace, or he who makes shalom. So because there were some slides that I did as I was doing that teaching, after I'd actually recorded it, there were a few things that came up, and I thought, oh, that'd be good to just put a slide together to see what the numbers are behind that. And as I did, I thought to myself, wow, this is just exciting stuff. So I thought I'm going to just quickly go through, because I didn't actually go through the concepts on the teaching. I thought, let's go through them now because they're so good. And so this is really just a very quick one, just going through some of these concepts. Here, the concept of the Redeemer must be united as one. So point one then, this is one of the points we've covered on numerous occasions, that the fact that Moshe 345 plus Yeshua 386 comes to 731. Point two, the luminaries. This is the luminaries spelt with a correction, including the two vavs that are missing from the actual Torah text. Okay, so in the Torah text, it's written without the two vavs. So it's written He, Mem, Aleph, Resh, Tav. So there's a difference. Anyway, this is the corrected version, and that comes to 658 regularly, which is a key critical number, and 73, which is Chochmah. So together they come to 731. That's highlighted in yellow. Okay, and then Melech Yisrael, King of Israel, is also 631 regularly plus 100 ordinarily comes to 731. So these are massive connections. Point four then, Moshe 39 ordinarily, Yeshua 53 ordinarily comes to 92. 92 is also the ordinal for Moshiach ben David. Okay, and that's the rectified version of Moshiach ben David. So that means including the additional yud in the name David or Dawid, depending on how you say it. Okay, so this is the little bit extra that I wanted to go through. Melech Goyim, King of the Nations, equals 149, plus an ordinal of 68. Okay, and that together comes to 217, which is also Einod Milvador. There is nothing beside him. That is the regular for Einod Milvador. Ordinarily, Einod Milvador comes to 82. And 82 is Moshiach ben David ordinarily, but this time without the additional letter Yud. So obviously you can see 92 is with the additional Yud, and the letter Yud is 10. So 82 is the normal spelling out of Moshiach ben David, but ordinal gematria. So loads of connections there. I did just want to go over this concept Melech Goyim, because the significance of this 149 in point 6, it's highlighted in green, a darker green, 149, because I've gone over this before, but I won't want to go over it again. The beginning of the Torah, the first verse in Torah, comes to an ordinal of 298, which is 2 times 149. Okay, so the ordinal for Bereshith bara Elohim et hashemayim wa et haaretz comes to 2 times 149. Okay, there's this concept in Sefer Yetzirah that states that the end is wedged in the beginning. So if we go to the very end of Torah, chapter Deuteronomy, chapter 34, verse 12, the very last words before the eyes of all Israel comes to 149 ordinarily. Okay, so we can actually see numerically the end is wedged in the beginning. And what is the beginning of the beginning on end of Torah is that Yod He Vav He, who is, that is the name, that is the entire Torah is the name Yod He Vav He, the inner and outer dimension to it. The inner dimension being the Torah of Moshiach, the outer dimension being the Torah of Moshe, And we've got that concept here of the two luminaries together, Moshiach and Yeshua. So Moshiach is Moshiach, basically. The inner and outer dimension of the Torah are one. Okay, Keter and Da'ath, supernal Da'ath, are one sphere. Okay. So all these concepts, it's just a complete oneness of it. And the oneness is that Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh desires to be king over Yisrael primarily, but every single nation. And the whole Torah, the whole revelation of the name of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh is to ultimately bring about a rectification of the nations. Okay? Our soul is pure and perfect, and our soul represents Yisrael. It's our body that needs rectification, and that rectified body is what brings about that shalom, that we can then receive a revelation of the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh in physical reality itself, or through physical reality, or through the unification of our souls with our bodies. Okay, we can receive that Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh desires to bestow upon us. So we can see that this concept of Melech Goyim is very, very, very critical to understand. You know, the whole process of healing, the whole process of rectifying our bodies in order to be able to serve the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh and nothing else, because it's our bodies that are subject to exile. The pain and suffering and trauma and experience of exile affects our bodies and stops our bodies from, it stops our bodies from reacting, if you like, to the truth, a true revelation, a true reality, which is the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. So exile is when our bodies are reacting to something other than the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Like we see this evil and react to it in an adverse way. Really, we've got to be able to transcend our nature. We've got to be able to transcend our natural response to life in a supernatural way. And that supernatural way is through attachment to the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. We can be supernatural in two ways. Exile itself is a supernatural phenomena. This evil that we see and that is very present in this world at this time is engineered to be so. It's supernatural, and we are having a supernatural experience called exile. It's not normal and natural to be subject to this level of evil. This has been engineered, okay, to a certain degree. This level of evil that humanity is subject to is by no way natural and normal. This is supernatural evil. Okay, so we have got to have a big response to this, because not only has our natural processes been hijacked by evil, but we are expected to rectify those supernatural evil responses. Okay, I hope you're following what I mean. Basically, this what we're subject to is truly not normal or natural. It's a condition that's been imposed on us by Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh for an ultimate good. Okay, so if you're looking at the world right now with all these unnatural evils, like the whole gender issue, it's very unnatural. The way that we live and consume, the whole family unit is very unnatural at this time. Some of the things that are going on, it's unnatural for a woman to kill a baby. This is not natural to do that. We're living in very, very savage times, where this supernatural evil, if you like, is dominating. We are in the 49th level of impurity, and everything it's a dog-eat-dog world to the absolute end. And some of these, like scientisms and all kinds of things that are going on, the supernaturally evil. We're living in times where, and we are getting programmed and influenced by this supernatural level of evil. I mean, it's just simply not normal. And this evil is conditioning our bodies to believe and respond a certain way. And that response is not the name Yod He Vav He. It's something other than that. We're responding with fear. We're responding with anxiety. We're responding with supernatural levels of depression, supernatural levels where people are killing themselves. You know, people are committing suicide because the level of evil that we're facing is so supernatural, so jacked up to maximum, that people are really not adjusting to that evil at all. And what will ultimately be born out of that, what ultimately has to be born out of that, is a supernatural revelation of the highest levels of a supernatural revelation of the highest levels of mercy of the name Yod He Vav He. Our attachment to that name Yod He Vav He is supernatural. Certainly our bodies, our physical, when that name is able to override and reprogram this supernatural evil programming that we have had imposed on us with it in the time that we've been in exile. The name Yod He Vav He is the only hope that we have to reprogram ourselves. A supernatural attachment to that name is the only hope our body has, to be programmed in a way that overcomes that powerful supernatural evil programming that exile programs within us. The depression, the sadness, the fear, the hopelessness, the panic, the trauma. And this can be generational. We can have inherited a lot. We can have been in the womb of a mother who was neurotic, who was traumatized and stressed by her own circumstances, and we could have inherited what's called generational trauma, you know, and these have been proved through studies of Holocaust survivors. The children that they bear have inherited levels of stress and levels of reaction to this evil that they themselves have not been subject to. So we are living in very, very, very difficult times to deal with, and nature cannot deal with it. Nature can't deal with supernatural levels of evil. We have to transcend our natures, you know, to deal with this level of supernatural evil. And that supernatural opposite that we need to attach to is the name Yod He Vav He. Okay, so you've got to bring all these concepts together. You know, our poor body has suffered these supernatural levels of evil. It has suffered, and it needs a solution to this problem. And the only solution we have got is a supernatural attachment to good, to overcome that evil. And you know, that comes about by faith, and faith is very much related to the truth. So the stronger the truth is that can reach us, the greater our emunah. Truth and emunah are very much connected. Okay, so the more we can be influenced by the truth, the greater our faith will increase, and through that greater increase of faith will come about a greater attachment and belief in the name Yod He Vav He. And that impression is what will override these high levels of evil, these supernatural levels of evil that have made an impression within us. We've got to reprogram our bodies basically with the truth that is the name Yod He Vav He. I hope you're following what I'm saying. So the whole concept of Melech Goyim is really king of our own bodies. That's the microcosmic version. And then obviously the macrocosmic version is that Moshiach will actually come and literally dethrone these evil shepherds that cause these supernatural levels of evil, and set up the kingdom of Yod He Vav He here on earth. And not only for Israel, Melech Israel, but also, you know, Melech Goyim. There will be one and the two. The Moshiach will be king of Israel and Melech Goyim, king of the nations also. Okay, so all these concepts are really important. And Enod Milvador, that's the level of revelation of the name that we've got to attain. We've got to get to a place where our bodies are no longer responding to this supernatural level of evil. We have an attachment that is even greater than that overrides and has reprogrammed our bodies, so that even when we're seeing very distressing things, we're not responding to that. We're saying, En Od Milvador, we are confident that even with this evil that we are subject to at this time in exile, that there's only Yod He Vav He, and he has a great purpose in this, even though we can't at this time perceive it. Okay, so that's just what I wanted to clarify and go over and make sure that we were very, very acutely aware of this reality, because we all know what I'm speaking about. This is really what's happening in every single person's life. You take one human being and ask them, the disease and illness that is prevalent at this time, it's unbelievable. The number of people with cancer, this is unheard of. Autoimmune diseases, that just the level of illness alone, it's supernatural. It's not normal. We're dealing with things that are really not normal. Not natural. We are well out of our natural comfort zone, or how we were made. We weren't made to deal with this level of depravity and evil. It's supernatural, and our bodies clearly can't cope with that. So we need a supernatural remedy to this supernatural evil, and that's what I'm trying to stress over and over again. And we can access that through Moshiach. Okay. So point 8 then, King of Israel 731, which is the regular and the ordinal, obviously, for that, isn't it? Plus the King of the Nations, that's just the regular, 149 comes to 880, which is 8 times 110, 8 times Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay, we'll come across that number quite a lot. Point 9 then, King of Israel, the regular 631 plus the regular King of the Nations comes to 780, which is 5 times 195. Right, so let's go and have a look at this number 195. We're going to pick it up in point 15 and point 16. Okay, so we go down, it's red, highlighted 159. What is the point of this union? Okay, and we've got this Letahath Kanfe Hashkina, beneath the wings of the Shekinah. That comes to an ordinal of 195. Okay, so it's got 1,452 regular, 195 ordinal, and that comes to 1,647. Humanity brought under the wings of the Holy Spirit, the Shekinah. This is supernatural. Okay, this is supernatural awareness, to be awareness of the indwelling presence of the name Yod He Vav He. That's what we mean by being brought beneath the wings of the Shekinah, to not just know and speak and think about the words Yod He Vav He, but to perceive this as a true reality, that submerged in this reality is a higher dominant reality. And that indwelling presence of his name, Yod He Vav He, is what, and to be conscious of this indwelling presence is what it means to be brought beneath the wings of the Shekinah. That means that we, even given these levels of supernatural evil, we are able to perceive true reality, which is that the master of all that, or above all that, or the true reality is that there's only Yod He Vav He, and we can actually perceive his presence, his holy presence in this world through our physical beings at this time. And we can be brought under the wings of the Shekinah, we can be brought into that revelation, we can be brought into that true reality, we can be awoken up to that true reality. And we want this for all humanity, because if we don't, there's going to be people that are outside the wings of the Shekinah causing trouble. They're causing their evil. We want all humanity is turn from the evil and repent, make teshuvah, and be brought back under the wings of the Shekinah. Okay, because this, after all, is our natural and, well, it's supernatural and supernormal, but that is the level that, that's redemption, you know. It is a supernatural state. It's like not physically natural, to be aware of the divine truth, because it's hidden. But we are working towards, we're in a process of revealing this true reality. Okay, so we will go from a place of exile into a place of redemption. Right, let's move on quickly. Where did we get to? All right, that was point 15. Point 16, Esav, the spelling out of the name Esav, plus Esav the first filling out, plus Esav the second filling out. These are all the ordinal numbers. So 50, 43, 98 and 249 come to 390, and 390 is 2 times 195. So Esav rectified and made into vessels of shalom to receive the name Yod He Vav He. Okay, so this is the whole process of, this is why we're exposed to exile. In order to transform these intense levels of chaos and darkness and these intense drives and lusts and ambitions towards evil, to transform that round, instead of being egotistical and selfish to the absolute maximum, to the 49th level of impurity, to transform even that level of darkness around into a vessel of holiness, to transform it from that level of darkness into a level of light or holiness that can contain and receive a revelation of the absolute perfection, oneness, shalom, and absolute authority of the name Yod He Vav He. Okay. So the purpose of that evil is simply to transform it. That evil transformed, that degree of supernatural level of evil transformed, will be the vessel that enables to receive the highest levels of supernatural revelation that we are able to receive, which is the revelation of the perfection and oneness and shalom and absolute authority of the name Yod He Vav He. So we are being exposed to this level of evil for an ultimate good reason, to be able to transform that level of evil. That level of evil transformed will be the vessel in which we are able to receive the light of the name Yod He Vav He. We've got to be able to overcome that degree of evil. And when, as a humanity, or even on our own, whatever evil we face in our own lives, whatever we are able to transform, is all for the good of humanity. It all impacts the whole for good. That is the very vessel that we will receive this revelation in. Okay, so we have got to transform our physical bodies around and bring them to a place of shalom, and to transform them from serving themselves and leading to chaos and destruction and evil into serving the name Yod He Vav He for the good of everyone. Okay, we've got to stop thinking about serving ourselves and start thinking about being connected to every other person in this world, and what's good for the other is good for me, rather than exploiting the other for the illusion of myself as some sort of separate entity in this world. It's to remove that feelings of separation from the other people in this world, and instead, think about ways in which we are united, and in ways which we can cooperate. Okay, so let's finish this off then. Where did we get to? Okay, so the king of Israel ordinarily and the king of the nations ordinarily 68 comes to 168. Point 11, that's point 10. 168, it's highlighted in a light orange or a dark yellow, whichever way you want to say it. Point 11 then, David rectified. This is David spelt out the square of each letter. So the square of the Daleth, which is the fourth letter, the square of the Vav, which is the second letter, the square of the Yud, which is the 10th letter, and the square of the Dalet, that comes to 168. Okay, so we know this unity is something to do with David rectified. Okay, point 12, King of Israel, 731. This is the total, ordinal and regular. And King of the Nations, ordinal and regular, comes to 217. That's in pink, point 12. If you add them together, it comes to 948, which is 2 times 474. Point 13. 474 is Erev Rav, mixed multitude. We are looking to rectify this exile and this evil. Okay? This is the Erev Rav represent our supernal da'ath, our external understanding of the name Yod He Vav He. Okay? Basically, that's what it's connected to, and it's also connected to Keter, the inner revelation of the name Yod He Vav He. Okay, so it's supernal da'ath, which is represented by Moshiach. That's why Moshiach is exiled in Erev Rav. Point 14, Erev Rav is also the equivalent to knowledge, da'ath. Okay, so Moshiach is from the supernal level of da'ath, so are the Erev Rav, but the supernal unholy level of da'ath. Okay, that needs rectifying, basically. So point 14, rectification for eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That's what we're trying to accomplish. Okay, so we're rectifying that, where we've eaten of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and now we perceive duality and separation, and now we perceive them and us, and now we perceive this good and bad, things like that. We need to perceive the unity, the hidden unity, if you like, the tree of the tree of life, and we need to rectify that damage that was done by eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And we have to transform that experience from the evil that it manifests as into the good that I've spoken about, and rectify our holy knowledge. So we're not just aware of good and evil, and our holy knowledge, we are aware of the name Yod He Vav He and nothing else. Okay, and that's what we're heading for, that Enod Milvador, which is synonymous with the levels of a revelation connected to Moshiach ben David. Okay, because as we can see, Moshiach ben David and Enod Milvador, they have exactly the same gematria, 82 ordinally. Okay, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, and shalom.